And welcome to the show. I am so glad you're here on this wonderful Wednesday afternoon as we start our series Back to School with Esports U. Thank you for being here. I'm your host, Bubba Gaddert. I'm just super excited to have a ton of fun, to educate and to help those out there in the space, whether they be endemic to esports or non-endemic. That means, because this is what we're going to do here, we're going to be teaching a lot. We're going to be teaching you all sorts of different terms, and non-endemic to endemic would be ones who are inside the esports ecosphere, the bubble, and non-endemic are those who are not, kind of like some brand that may not be all the way involved with esports. A good example for endemic now would be Snoop Dogg. Yesterday, he signed with FaZe Clan. I think it was yesterday, the day before, and he became endemic, although he had been streaming, so he's kind of already in the space. But today, we're gonna have some fun. I'm gonna pull up a very fun research document. that doesn't sound. Let me start over, because I don't believe people normally say that. If you're out there and you hear the terminology together, fun research document, it's really not a document. It's more of a slideshow that provides a bunch of information and a bunch of links. So we've got our music going, we're chilling, and I'm going to jump into it here on the Back to School with Esports U. Now, this slideshow is something that our foundation, the Varsity Esports Foundation, put together this last year, and it's really just a combination of some odd 40 slides that are data points and resources and articles from all over, from every part of the world. And it's a very valuable and important research document for us at the foundation, because we get to share this with parents and teachers and educators and administrators and those inside and outside of the esports space and the gaming space as well. So we're going to do a ton of educating. Sit back, relax. We're recording this. We got this on YouTube. We got this on Twitch. This is our original programming, Back to School with Esports U. So thanks for being here. Thanks to those who are in the chat. I'm gonna interact with the chat as much as I can, but I also am going to try and make this a nice little bit of content that we can have to store and archive for people to watch over and over. So thanks for being here. Now, this document's really cool. It is going to be put in the chat, and it'll also be linkable in the description of these videos, but it's purely just an easy, simple link, and you just enter right there. Now, this slide presentation is pretty cool. You can use the arrow keys, you can use this menu bar on the side, and there's also some key pages right in here. We're going to skip a couple pages throughout just because I want to get information out there to you. This presentation is really important. I mentioned parents, teachers, educators, but yeah, inside esports literacy, we have the people who need this presentation: government, businesses, students, families, educators. They're all in there. It's designed to be able to educate this space, pretty much everybody. But if you're out there watching right now, this is for you. Table contents, we're going to cover what is esports, is gaming a big deal, why is esports big, esports in schools, addiction and violence, as well as health benefits. A lot of mental benefits we're going to go over. There's a bit of information here within the presentation. You can learn about the Varsity Esports Foundation, its Platinum Transparency rating. It's a STEM accredited organization that I run, as well as I get to be an esports expert and host on things like Esports U right here with you. And there's a little more information about us and what we do. You can read that, or pause it if you prefer, and a couple testimonies from others. Now, what is esports? Let me tell you, that is probably if you use one of those tools, it's one of those very common Google searches. What is esports, or what are esports? I don't know if I'm going to be the one to tell you if you should use are or is in that, but hey, you hear about it. Now, there are some videos up on the website, thevarsitysportsfoundation.org, that Coach Alney had put together with us, where you can view all those lessons. This is about a 25-minute video you can watch. It's really cool, interesting, gives a bunch of the history and the feedback, and a couple different shows out there. Now, this is a big thing. You want to know about how to write esports correctly. Now, there's a lot of gatekeepers in our industry that particularly want to make sure you do it right. I am guilty over the years of correcting people to put it here on the right side of the screen, the correct with a capital E or a lowercase e and lowercase s, I should say, compared to what's over on the left side. That spelling, that way to write it correctly is important because we want to make sure if you're using this correct terminology in the space, then you probably are going to be taken a lot more serious. E-gaming is not a term we use. I'll just give you a little history here. We use this in the past because e-mail is something that was around the 90s. It's something we use quite often, but there's a lot of discussion about it, but I'll just leave it there. Why is gaming, is gaming still big? Is it not just for 30-year-olds in their basement drinking soda, eating chips? Well, let's take a look at the numbers. We got a bunch of slides of the numbers. And reminder, at the bottom of this presentation, right down there, there's links credited to all the information, each site, each website, each article, each research paper that's out there on this information. Part of Newzoo's information they gave away is there's 3 billion gamers in the world. It's only about 40% of the world, right? So there's a lot of gamers. And when you break that down here in the United States, there's 227 million gamers, and of those, the average age of a gamer is 31, and of those 227 million gamers, 45% identify as female. Now, this test only asks for 2 genders, so that's the data we have right now from 2021, which the Entertainment Software will be coming out with some more information, I'm sure, towards the middle of this summer. Look at this, students. This is where I live. I live in the Scholastic space, as we call it. You're here watching on the Esports U channel on Twitch. It is managed by the Collegiate Sports Management Group, Scholastic Space, and Scholastic Esports, managing Esports U and events like the CECC, the Collegiate Esports Commissioners Cup that's happening in May in Atlanta, which we'll have a commercial for that later. But hey, almost all of teenagers play video games. I left this up for a little bit because I want you to make sure you know that pretty much all kids play video games. So when we're talking about kids doing something with their lives and being active, we'll get into it a little deeper here later as well. Gaming overall, let's just say mobile, desktop, and consoles, $180 billion industry almost. And that's just 2021. It'll definitely be higher this year. And when we look at the pie chart there, we see that mobile, the dark blue, is a lot larger because around the world, mobile access to games is a lot easier. Plus, if you are someone who plays Candy Crush, or you play Words of Friends, or I would even go to say that the New York Times Wordle now is part of the gaming industry. That is a game. So you're a gamer right there. It's a very inexpensive form of entertainment. If we look at gaming right here for the SaaS, that's subscription-based models, it's 17 cents per hour cost compared to going to see the new film this weekend, whichever it may be, for a lot more. Which that's a good deal right there. I'd go to that movie for $7.11. That's an average, right? So it's a very inexpensive form. There's another level here of traditional gaming. That is more if you are purchasing the CD or the digital content. This is more of subscription-based games. Now, for those Chamber of Commerce nerds like myself out there, gaming in the United States, and this is old data from 2019, it provided a $90 billion economic impact in the United States with over 429,000 jobs. That's just the ones we really know about. If we add in what streamers do, like some of you streamers are in the chat right now, there's going to be quite a few zeros on the end of that for those in the gaming industry. Now, it may not be full-time, but it is part of the industry. Look at the salary ranges. I mean, we look at top left, pro esports player, $60K. When we look down, the game tester in the bottom right, $52K. Where's the largest one? $162,000 for a team manager of an esports team. Now, I'll say that team manager makes more than the player, but that player makes a ton of money on endorsement deals and sponsorships. Now, this is just the big sexiness of esports and gaming. However, there's a lot more than what is just shown here in the levels of salary ranges. Great graphic we have from NASEF, the North American Scholastic Esports Federation, that put this diagram together about the different opportunities for careers. And we have another great slide here in a minute we'll show that's even larger and more colorful about what careers are in the gaming industry. When you look at this, you have a couple different segments, and we'll break those down here in a minute. But if you take out the middle of gaming in the middle and you put in MBA or other careers, other industries, they would have a lot of the same jobs, because when we look at this big chart here, and you can definitely go find this on medium.com by Nico Bassombes from France. He put this out, and he's got another couple 15 charts or so similar to what's happening in gaming and esports. But we look at these different jobs, and we look at, probably can't read it, but human resources, financial, legal, we've got career management, we've got coaches, players, wellness coaches, sports directors, web designers, journalists, cameraman, stage manager, light engineer, game developer, all these jobs that are related around the esports profession, which is also inside what's happening with gaming to get those titles to be able to play. There's quite a bit of jobs and careers there. If you're thinking you can't do anything in games, well, we're here to tell you can. Even a fun story that happened on NBC Nightly News last year, the air traffic controllers, I think it was either national or somewhere in Washington, D.C. maybe, they were reaching out to hire gamers because gamers can use their skills to look at maps and manage things and coordinate. I mean, if you have ever played something like World of Warcraft, then you know how to manage a bunch of people and a bunch of things at once with your guild. And there's a full video, you can see that as well. Now, why is esports big? Why is there so much money involved? We're getting close to halfway done through this, and we wonder, well, it's a $24 billion industry. Now, there's a debate that happens with a couple different people, Newzoo, Seth Jenny, William Collins, about whether it be a $1 billion industry or a $24 billion industry. I think the debate is great. I'm going to go with a larger number because it seems better and it seems bigger. I've been convinced of it by the researchers that it's that level. And we look at the game publishers alone make a ton of money off the esports industry. And they're the ones who hold the IP and they hold the keys to those games, those game titles. And then you have other platforms and teams and leagues that make money off the esports industry as well. Now, when we look at this 24 billion, seems like a ton, but it's really a drop in the bucket to $180 billion industry overall for gaming worldwide. And we think about viewership. I was watching a really good video earlier today that was back from 2017 that I hadn't watched before, and was talking about why people in 2017 didn't get the esports was going to be big when they kept seeing viewership going up and up and up and surpassing many of the large sporting events that we know right now, is things like the Super Bowl and whatnot. But I remember there was 5.4 million viewers watched last year the Free Fire World Series. This is a game kind of like Fortnite. They play in the Middle East and India, and 5.4 million people watch that. And there's a $30 million prize pool that this gentleman right here, this now 19-year-old, I think he is, Kyle Buga-Giersdorf, he won $30 million for playing Fortnite in front of 2.3 million viewers. This one we love. Us in the esports space, we'd love to show this. I know Kurt Melcher at an event this weekend was showing this for esport coaches and directors. And if you look at the cell, hey, what are you doing? Kid is watching someone play video games on their computer desktop, and the parent is asking, what are you doing? Well, I'm watching this guy play this game. It's pretty funny. It's entertainment. Wait, so you're not even playing, he says, in the bottom left cell. In the top right cell, he says, yeesh, what a complete waste of time. And then the last cell, of course, we know, as we see here, the parent is sitting on the chair, eating popcorn, watching a sport he'll probably never play again. And that's a common thing. So really, who is the one being not active? I don't know. Millions of dollars. We'll look at different prize pools from big esports. Last year, we got information from the International, which is a Dota 2 competition Back in 2019, $34.3 million as a prize pool. The interesting thing about those prize pools, those are community contribution, which means they crowdsourced a lot of that funding for the prize pool. I think it was 25%. Yeah. And so there's a lot of funding out there beyond sponsors to raise money for these prize pools, not just tickets and not just buying into the tournament. There's a lot of money for it. Now, halfway through, if you're wondering what we're talking about, you're just showing up. We're talking about esports. We're talking about esports and gaming. We've covered what it is. We've covered the big information on money and revenue in the industry. We also covered why and how these prize pools work and other things like that. And why is it such an important deal, a big deal? Now, when we go into schools, we talk about schools, esports in schools is a big deal, especially for those in our esports bubble, the scholastic space. We're going to jump into this, and as you see down the bottom left, we have information about violence, and we're going to talk about benefits as well. So we're going to talk about some stigmas, and we're also going to talk about some benefits, a lot of cognitive and mental health benefits. Let's jump into it. Almost 2,000 colleges have esport programs here in North America. If you have ever heard of someone playing video games in school and a college space, it's happening. Here at Esports U, we run an event called the CECC, the Collegiate Esports Commissioners Cup. That's happening May 6th through 8th in Atlanta at the Gateway Arena. You can find out more information at collegiatesmg.com/CECC. And that event is the culmination of 64 teams coming from around the nation to play 4 different game titles: in Overwatch, Rocket League, Smash Brothers, and I believe Valorant. And those games are being played by all these teams to compete for the title, to win. And they're doing it from different ranges of schools, whether they be what we consider a varsity esports team with a coach and some scholarships we'll talk about here in a minute, or down to a bunch of students running a organization. I talked to a school the other day. They have about 1,000 students in their organization, and it's all led by students. And they have about 15 different game title clubs. So the Smash team has its own 4 or 5 teams. College esports is happening, and that's why you're here on Esports U. Esports University is what the U stands for, if you didn't know. Now, every year, we know about $20 million of scholarships are available for esports, whether that be half partial tuition discounts, merging with other scholarships that happen for your grades or things that you've earned as a high school senior going into college. But there's a scholarship available for plenty of people, and we even realize that, sadly, about 4 to 5 million of those scholarships go unused each year because there's not enough students in the pipeline. And it's honestly difficult for coaches out there, the many, many coaches in the college space, to find information that directs them to the right place to find a scholarship, or they don't know how. And coaches have the same issue of finding students on the other side. It's a lot of fun discussion. We'd love for you to be a part of the discussion and help us connect with more colleges so we can help you connect with more students. Now, there's over 5,000 high schools in the United States, about 1,000 middle schools or so in the United States that have some form of an esport club or have created one over the past 8 years. There's some we're missing here as well. And these organizations are pin dots from the largest and longest running league for high schools, which is the High School Esports League, a partner of Esports U and CSMG, and NASIF as well. It's a partner of the Varsity Esports Foundation. And these pin dots show the plethora of schools. Now, there's a lot of empty space, but that's what you probably see on population density, but it's happening across the country. So if you're thinking, we can never do it at our school, well, you can say 5,000 schools have done it. Why can't we? And that's really not even a big percent. There's 35,000 high schools in the United States, whether it be public, private, parochial, or charter. Now, there's also a really cool gaming concepts curriculum out there in the world created by Dr. Christy Custer and Dr. Michael Russell and Dr. Christopher Jensen. You can check that out on this website. It's a great bit of curriculum. It's the only textbook in the world for gaming and esports, a comprehensive textbook. And what we noticed over the past few years when it came to students using this gaming concepts curriculum and they were involved in esport clubs, they noticed a GPA increase of 1.7 and a 10% increase in attendance. Now, this is an after-school program where students come into a classroom and they participate with their friends and they have teamwork and camaraderie and they compete or they learn. And after-school programs typically on the norm have an ability to increase attendance and GPA. So if we know there's a bunch of programs out there doing that, but yet there's an underserved population, which we'll show here on the next slide, of many students who don't want to participate in throwing a ball or playing an instrument, we find that of those students who participate in these clubs, 82% of them say they've never participated in any other extracurricular activity ever at school. So that means you're serving a population of underserved students that want to belong to something, and that's why it provides that belonging. Social emotional learning is great. Another great graph from NASIF where all these great things beyond the cooperation and relationships, communication, perseverance, grit, teamwork, camaraderie that we mentioned, problem solving, critical thinking, just technology, college and career advancement that's there inside a club that these students can learn beyond just playing a game, because it's as Kevin Brown says, it is the chocolate on the broccoli to get the students in and get them learning. A lot of information about STEAM and STEM. I'll let you know if you don't know STEM, whichever one you prefer using. A was added later down the road for arts, which it's science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Now, back in 2020 or 1999, Andrew Raup with STEM.org, they created this movement so United States students really, and at that time, could be more globally ready to get into the job force by learning STEAM and STEM activities and programs at schools and after school organizations to help them be career ready. And hey, we all love STEM for it. Another great thing is girls, young women, and potentially 13 through 25 actually benefit from games, and it enhances their problem solving and creativity and strategy, because STEM is helping them find more opportunities. And yeah, there's plenty of different careers and opportunities for all genders, but this one really goes off the charts and is worth noticing that this is something that's not tapped into enough, and there's a little bit of issues in glass ceiling, or as we call it, the glass monitor here in the industry, that we can cover in another date and time on the series. Other cool benefits of esports in education: emotional learning, social emotional learning that we talked about. That's a very sexy word, SEL, in the industry of education: literacy, competitiveness, problem solving, like I mentioned earlier. Let's jump into addictions and violence. Does video games cause violence? Do they cause issues, screen time, addiction? Well, yes and no. A lot of no, but we'll cover that. Addiction is a big thing. We want to make sure you know about this when it comes to finding an opportunity to take moderation when it comes to the amount of time anyone plays video games. Just like in moderation, you could potentially play video games for 16 hours a day because you're training, but you could also do 16 hours a day of basketball and not use moderation as a tool. So we want to make sure that people are using moderation as a way to help them, and these organizations do such a thing. Now, the question also comes up, what about screen time? Screen time, the digital babysitter. My kids are always on games, and I can't. I'm working. I need something to keep them entertained. And are my kids going to be crazy and aggressive? And we look at this information from the University of Oxford, and they found actually no relationship between aggressive behavior in teenagers and the amount of time playing violent video games. Yes, no correlation, no relationship. the issue might be coming from the study that happened back in 2015. And just recently, the American Psychological Association reaffirmed that study from 2015, a resolution that cited that that the evidence that video games are the cause of violent behavior and mass shooting is just not there. What happened over the past 5, 6, 7 years has been that media and policymakers have taken that data and that research and misquoted it, unfortunately, and hyped it up to say there is a study showing that violence is caused by video games and school shootings are caused by video games, when we have a ton of data that is showing that it's not true at all. It's just unfortunate loud people say loud things. Now, we jump into that because if we look in the United States, video game sales going up in the billions and violent crime going down in a trend, but it's still to blame. So what could be the issue? I don't know. Maybe there's a little bit to do with violent gun deaths in the United States. Quite a bit of violent gun deaths in the United States compared to Japan, who buys more video games and they have a very little amount of gun deaths. Now, when we think about that, I think about what causes more violence and also kind of make the correlation of what requires no physical movement or training. There was a good video I watched earlier today about Olympic shooting, and this kind of shows that there are clubs in schools that have shooting clubs for Olympic shooting, for people to join maybe the U.S. Olympic shooting team to shoot clay pigeons or targets down a shooting range. And those clubs require skill, safety, discipline, training, mental focus, but it's just pulling a trigger. And compared to that hand movement and using this mouse to move around and click buttons, which one needs more physical training or movement? I mean, they're pretty similar. And which one causes more violence? Well, we've just talked about how video games are proven and shown to not have a connection, and we're not seeing a lot of information or data coming out saying these shooting clubs are bad either. So what is it? What is it that we really are trying to understand? And it's that we have a misconceived notion about violence in video games. And we also wonder, that physical movement point, is esports an actual sport? Well, sport is defined by organization, rules, skill, physical movement. Talked about those clicks. I mean, you can make 400 clicks in a minute compared to large muscles being used to throw a ball. You're using a lot more eye movement and cognitive reflexes to be able to make a ton of decisions in a few seconds. So, is it a sport? I think we're going to have that debate for quite some time. Now, we're on to our final section. We're wrapping up the show for our Back to School with Esports U. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to finish up our benefit section. Got a lot of fun data in here, a lot of information that will help people see the true benefits of esports, especially in health and mental health. Now, we've found data, and we've got a study showing that kids are less likely to be bullied or become addicted because of digital competencies and the ability to get education that promotes these competencies. So it's really, really important that we as parents are helping educate our students the right ways to use their devices. Playing video games can be good for well-being. Yes, we agree. Lots of studies out there, Oxford Internet Institute, showing that social connection is very important for people's well-being and video games, as well as cognitive benefits. Research showing attention, executive function, which is a huge part of your brain and what you do, it helps you. We talked about the FAA hiring gamers, right? Helps with these job-related skills, which I was going to even mention gray matter, right? Increasing gray matter volume from the amount of video games played. And what I always touch on this one is we tend to not have an issue with 5, 4, 3-year-olds playing a leapfrog game or something like that teaches a student or a young one. And we typically don't have an issue with someone playing solitaire and they're 75 or older or playing a memory type game on their phone. And we think that's important. But in the middle, we tend to have an issue with video games and think that it's causing problems and not helping problems. And we see a lot of data that proves it's helping. Child improvement in memory, improvements in memory, right there. When that memory that they need later on for all the skills they need, it's going to help. They're going to remember certain ways that a video game, corners and skills and things you need. Those are going to help build that brain storage for memory. One last thing, if you're part of the organization, we'd love for you to donate. But hey, this has been a ton of fun. This was our first show in the series of Wednesday episodes where we go into information about the esports and gaming industry. Wanted to make sure to get this kind of boring one done so you could have a little information and refer to it later. We're going to have some interviews with people throughout the next few months. We're going to have regular times where we play games with people in order to teach us about the video game industry and esports. And we're going to be diving into tough questions. And we're going to have people from the college space, coaches, players. They're going to talk to us about the importance of gaming and esports in their schools and how they were able to play esports in a college setting. And we're going to just have some fun. So I'm glad you came today. It was a ton of fun for me to be able to sit here and just spout off some of the information that I've been collecting for years to be able to give you some information for your knowledge and literacy. And that's right. This has been Back to School with Esports U. I'm Bubba Gaddert. Thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.